John and Helen Whitman's house stood proudly at the edge of Richmond, its stone facade gleaming in the afternoon sun, framed by meticulously trimmed hedges and a polished lawn that whispered of order and care. From the outside, it was the kind of home that made neighbors nod with quiet approval, the perfect picture of suburban success and comfort. But the beauty of the house was a stark contrast to the heaviness that filled its rooms, a silent tension that seemed to seep from every corner. Inside, the air was thick with exhaustion and unspoken frustration, a sharp divide from the warm facade visible to passers-by. John was rarely home, caught up in the relentless grind of his used car business, his presence a brief shadow that flickered through the house without leaving warmth behind. Helen carried the weight of their twin boys' fragile health on her shoulders, her face pale and worn, eyes heavy with sleepless nights spent at their bedside. The boys, Ethan and Liam, were delicate souls caught in a constant battle with illness, their weak bodies always on the edge, trembling with fevers that refused to break. Helen's hands trembled not just from fatigue, but from the crushing isolation of her endless vigil, a silent war waged behind the closed doors of a home that seemed so perfect to the outside world. Rumors swirled around the neighborhood, whispers of the Whitmans' coldness, their sharp judgments, and a stubborn refusal to welcome anyone different. It was the quiet kind of racism, not shouted or brandished, but woven into the very way they held their doors closed a little tighter when unfamiliar faces passed by, a coldness that stretched like a shadow across their lives. Yet beneath this hardened exterior, there was a deep, complicated fear, the fear of vulnerability, of the unknown, and of losing control in a life already strained to breaking. This was a family trapped between appearances and reality, held hostage by their own unspoken fears and judgments, their love for their children tangled in the thorns of suspicion and quiet bitterness. The house, beautiful and still, stood as a silent witness to their struggles, a fortress that kept out the world but also locked away the warmth they so desperately needed. Beneath the polished surface of their flawless home, a darker truth pulsed. John and Helen Whitman's deeply ingrained prejudices shaped every decision, coloring even their most desperate choices. The endless nights spent watching their son struggle with fragile health had frayed Helen's spirit, leaving her hollowed and raw, and John's impatience simmered beneath his tired eyes. When Helen finally voiced the plea for help, it was not just weariness speaking, but a quiet surrender to the unbearable weight of their reality. Yet John's suggestion of hiring a nanny was tangled in his biases, a silent test more than a genuine hope for support. He spoke softly, almost as if confessing a secret shame about wanting to try someone different, a phrase loaded with unspoken fears and assumptions. "Black women are tough," he said, his voice cautious but firm. "They know how to handle these things, don't they? Raised half the kids in this country, after all." Helen's heart sank at the words, the sting of prejudice wrapping cold around her already fragile hope. It wasn't kindness that drove this decision, but a cynical gamble, a cruel experiment masked as necessity. They agreed on a trial week, cameras secretly installed throughout the house, a silent jury watching every move, every word, every gesture of the woman who would soon arrive at their doorstep. Cassandra Thomas came quietly, carrying with her the weight of experience and compassion, but unaware of the hidden scrutiny awaiting her. From the moment she stepped into their world, there was an invisible barrier she had to cross, one built of suspicion and old wounds. Helen forced a polite smile and warned Cassandra of the cameras, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken judgments. The Whitmans were not simply looking for care, they were testing a stereotype, hoping to confirm their prejudices rather than open their hearts. In the quiet moments before the children's fragile breathing filled the rooms, a battle of expectations began, one that would challenge not only Cassandra's strength, but the very walls that kept the Whitmans trapped in their own fears. The decision to hire Cassandra was not an act of faith or kindness, but a mirror held up to the darkness lurking behind their perfect facade, a darkness that would soon be illuminated in ways they never imagined. From the moment Cassandra stepped into the Whitman household, she carried with her a quiet strength that defied the cold skepticism shadowing her arrival. She was more than just a nanny. She was a beacon of patience and warmth in a house thick with tension and unspoken doubts. Cassandra moved with purposeful calm, her soft-spoken voice a soothing balm to the frail lives she tended. She didn't just care for the boys. She saw them, really saw them, as more than their illnesses, more than fragile bodies bound by weakness. Night after night, she stayed by Charlie's side as his fever spiked, her hand steady with a cool rag pressed gently against his burning skin, her whispered stories a tether to a world beyond pain. She cooked meals with care, knowing the smallest details mattered. Oliver's sensitive stomach deserved fresh, gentle food, not the salty pantry fare left behind. The boys, once withdrawn and silent, began to respond to her kindness. Oliver's rare smiles blossomed into requests for songs, his small voice filling rooms that had long been heavy with worry. Charlie, too, found comfort in her presence, asking for Cassandra to tuck them in, even when their parents were home, an unspoken testament to the trust she earned. Yet behind every tender moment was the invisible gaze of the hidden cameras, capturing her every move under suspicion, waiting for failure. But there was none. Cassandra's care was not a performance. It was a genuine, fierce devotion born from experience and love. The Whitmans watched in disbelief as the walls they had built with prejudice slowly crumbled, replaced by moments of genuine connection and unexpected hope. Cassandra did more than survive their test. She shattered it, revealing the humanity that the Whitmans had refused to see, the quiet power of kindness that no prejudice could suppress. The quiet storm of doubt inside the Whitman household reached its peak one gray, rainy Thursday that seemed to mirror the tension hanging heavy in the air. The boys, fragile as they were, had come to trust Cassandra with their most vulnerable moments, but nothing could have prepared anyone for what happened next. Without warning, Charlie collapsed, a sudden, terrifying stillness that froze time. Cassandra's reaction was immediate, her calm training and fierce love taking over as she grabbed him gently, checked his breathing, and called 911, her voice steady even as her heart pounded fiercely. The seconds stretched endlessly until the ambulance arrived, but in those moments, every quiet act of care, every whispered lullaby, every tender touch flashed vividly in the minds of those watching. Margaret and Alan rushed in, soaked by the relentless rain, their exhaustion and fear mingling with a deep, unexpected gratitude as they saw Cassandra's unyielding strength in the face of crisis. Oliver clung to her, tears soaking her shirt, a silent testament to the bond that had formed in this house once cold with suspicion. This was more than just a test of endurance. It was a breaking point, a moment when the veneer of prejudice cracked, revealing the raw truth of love, sacrifice, and trust. In those harrowing hours, the Whitmans glimpsed a reality they had long denied. Cassandra was not just a caretaker. She was their family's lifeline. This single, heart-wrenching moment changed everything, forcing them to confront their biases and see the undeniable light that Cassandra brought into their lives. After that terrifying night, a subtle but profound transformation began to take root within the Whitman household. The air, once heavy with cold suspicion and unspoken judgments, started to warm with cautious hope. Margaret found herself lingering in the kitchen more often, offering Cassandra a cup of coffee in the mornings, a small gesture but one laden with newfound respect and tentative friendship. Alan, too, began to shift, no longer referring to Cassandra with distant, dismissive words, but by her name, his tone softening as he watched her care for his sons with unwavering dedication. Each day brought a new layer of understanding, a quiet unraveling of prejudice that had once seemed so unbreakable. Cassandra's presence was no longer tolerated out of necessity, it was cherished. She moved through the house with a gentle strength, tending to the boys with a love that transcended her role as a nanny. She became their protector, their comfort, their light. When Alan finally asked why she had stayed despite knowing they were watching, her answer cut through the walls they had built around themselves. Because those boys deserved better, and she would never run from people like them. It was a quiet admission of courage, a challenge wrapped in compassion. Slowly, the cameras were turned off, the scrutiny lessened, and the family began to breathe freely for the first time in years. Margaret's apology was simple but profound, an acknowledgement of the wrongs they had committed and the hope for a better path forward. And when Alan handed Cassandra the video clips, the tangible proof of her unwavering care, it wasn't just an act of contrition. It was an invitation to own her story, to show the world the power of kindness in breaking down the walls of hate. The Whitman's house, once a fortress of cold judgment, had begun to bloom with forgiveness, trust, and the promise of healing. The change within the Whitman family rippled far beyond the walls of their home, quietly spreading like sunlight through a long-shaded room. Cassandra, no longer just a nanny but a beacon of unwavering love, captured a moment of pure, unfiltered joy, Oliver's shy whisper of love, the smile that radiated from his fragile heart, and shared it with the world. Her post was simple, yet powerful. Some hearts can't be taught hate. They just know love. It struck a chord deep within the hearts of thousands who saw it, awakening empathy, hope, and a yearning for change in a world too often divided by fear and prejudice. The viral response was a testament to the strength of kindness and the quiet revolutions that happen when someone chooses compassion over judgment. Meanwhile, the boys flourished, their laughter filling the once somber house with a vibrant new energy, a sound so pure it seemed to cleanse the past. Margaret's eyes softened, her steps lighter as she began volunteering at the local clinic, extending the ripple of care beyond her own home. Alan, too, faced his own transformation. No longer avoiding the gaze of neighbors who looked different, he began to embrace a broader world, one shaped by respect rather than suspicion. This story, humble and deeply human, was not about grand gestures or loud declarations. It was about the slow, steady breaking down of walls built by years of fear. It was about a family learning to love beyond old prejudices, a community stirred by a simple truth, that love, once it takes root, can change hearts, heal wounds, and open doors to a future rich with hope and promise. In the quiet aftermath, with cameras off and judgments lifted, what remained was a lesson as old as time. True change begins when we dare to see each other not as others, but as human.